If you're an African American, a woman from any part of the world trying to build something, leading to something, or trying to understand the world you're operating in, this podcast is for you. Hi, I'm Iman. I am the co-founder of Naserian Access.
And hi, I'm Jamila, also co-founder of Naserian Access.
Welcome to Naserian Rises, where we talk about key issues. We have real people with real information and real stories. We are going to give you a taste of Amani Mhinda, who is a development practitioner, a man with many hats from Tanzania, but he's working across the African region and the globe as a whole. Amani, tell us about you. If I'm meeting you for the first time, I know Amani, but the viewers don't know Amani. So if I'm meeting Amani for the first time, how would you describe Amani and what do you do across the African region? Karibu, Amani.
Thank you, Iman and Jami, and I really appreciate to have this opportunity to be with you on this podcast, but also to join Naserian Access as an advisor. Amani is a development practitioner who works from his heart, connected to real issues concerning communities. My journey started with working with my own community, which is a mining community where Tanzanite mining is done in Tanzania. Actually, the only place in the world that Tanzanite mining is being mined. I started off as a lawyer, human rights activist, community mobilizer and organizer, supporting community around the mining in my own town and later the entire of Tanzania to be pushing for accountability and demanding for more access and rights over the mineral resources in their own land. Yeah, and in that I set up an organization called HakiMadini, which is the first mining specialized advocacy organization in Tanzania and also much of the East Africa, and also moved on to support other communities that are affected by petroleum investment around Lindi Mtwara. So I've been involved in building a social movement in Tanzania for a while, for about 20 years, been involved in legal reforms, as well as also supporting communities to have their own voice. Later moved to philanthropy, where I worked for Open Society Foundation for about 4.5 years. And later moved to freelance consulting, where I do a lot of things with my experience, right from the programming, strategy, resource mobilization, and policy analysis.
Amani, I would love to know why exactly, when Jamila and I reached out, what drew you to us?
I think the passion that you have, but I think it's also linked to the inspiration I got from my own mom, late mom. She used to be a very influential figure in my life. She gave me opportunities that I would not have gotten through the struggle of raising me up, plus my other siblings. And I always look at that and see the world through a woman's lens. It's really important to see how a woman can really hold the family together during hard times, but also provide for the children and guide them into who they are. I used to be very cheeky but quiet in my younger days. I used to be very good in school, but I also had issues with not being focused. My mom used to tell me, focus on education. And this one of the things that actually made me really perform well. And I can see the value that it has become of me. Looking at communities that I've lived and worked in, I see women discussion being put aside. A lot of times women are only seen as annex to lots of conversation, being a policy, law, or even community agreements. They don't have the voice. And there's also that fear that maybe empowered women can take over, the roles that, currently held by the men. In the sectors that I've worked, and prominently in mining and petroleum, you normally see that the benefit is mentioned in bold letters a lot of times, but there's very little aggregation to show how the women benefit from that. And this is because right from the beginning in designing and developing these policies, the women are not given that opportunity, but also they are not really given the right information. And information, especially in high-value economic sectors, is really, really important because lack of information itself can create a distortion. And I think this Naserian Access is providing a very good platform upon which women leadership can be developed. That information asymmetry can also be reversed, as well as connection and networking opportunity that actually can raise the game for the women, whether in business or public sector. And this is really, really important because we know that for sure that investing in a woman is highly profitable. It unlocks economic productivity and provides opportunity for reducing poverty. When you talk about SDG, the woman is at the center of it all.
Investing in a woman is highly profitable. Jamila, did you hear that?
Yeah.
I like how the conversation started with his mom. You know, as mothers, we like to hear things like that, like our kids are inspiring us. Whatever Amani just mentioned, I swear I put myself in his mother's shoes. As a mom who has a young girl who's always telling them, focus because it's important for you to focus on your education, you know, like the things that we tell our kids, that you're going to school to not make friends. You can make friends, yes, but the key goal is to learn. So focus on that.
We wanting that to ensure that we provide for them, but we also have the obligation to make sure that they pick their own journey. They decide how they want to go and really support them in that journey, because that's the only way you can build them to survive in this world, which is very competitive, especially if you think about a corporate world for a woman. It's really, really challenging, and we need to prepare our girls to go beyond the traditional roles that we have in community. So if we want them to rise in the corporate world and even in public sector, then we have to trust them as they grow. Protect them, yes, but also give them opportunity. Just guide them into a better future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that reference to your background, upbringing, and your mom. And I think mothers are in the position to shape their children's lives. And if you are a mom that is motivated and you are out there leading by example, that also does a lot in how you shape your kids' lives and future. So I really appreciate hearing that, because that resonated with me and like my upbringing and what my mom was like telling me, and like, key things, and like helping me focus and guiding me through different things that were challenging. How do you see that Naserian Access can tap into these sectors that have traditionally excluded women?
The world is changing. We are moving from a multilateral system that actually is not holding things together at the moment. It's quite disintegrating at the moment, and you're not sure what the new world order will look like. But that comes with a highly competitive environment, geopolitical environment, which is really, really competitive. And this means everyone is striving to get the best and the most out of the situation. With the global supply chain disrupted, with the traditional diplomacy approach not working anymore, and everybody is fighting for survival. And that is a risky situation for the weak, because everybody now is focused on how do we either make profit and how do we accumulate resources in order for us to cushion ourselves against the so-called threat. It could be imaginary, it could be just a perspective. So we have competition between the West and the East, and the East and the South, and all this. And Africa is in the middle of all this. African women and youth and children will be victims. It's this integrated system where there is no protection, there's no unilateral way of dealing with things. So just competition left, right, center. So for example, if you're looking for critical minerals in a community, you'll find a situation whereby the women and children don't really get the right attention. The social issues don't get the right attention. The environmental issues don't get the right attention. All it is about how do we get the maximum out of it. So this is kind of a situation that is going to challenge us. Traditionally, we used to really engage with structure the way maybe you say, the UN will come, or the international court will come, or human rights system will come. This time around, these things seem not to be working. That means communities will be isolated more and more as states and corporations come together, try to maximize from the situation. And so this is a really important time when people can think about investing in women and youth, because their voice has to be there. Nobody will champion them apart from themselves. But also, there is always analogy I use: when the doors are closed and there's conversation going in, you just have to kick it open and go in. And I think these are important. We might be options, especially with the women, might be options. So our mothers, our grandmothers, our daughters, I also have a daughter, we'll have to fight to get into those spaces. Fight in the good way, legally, but fight by building negotiation power, building diplomatic acumen, and understanding of issues, because you can be in a room and you literally don't understand anything that goes on there. So you need to educate our children, our daughters, because when a huge population is left behind, and especially when the women, our mothers, are left behind, then we are facing destruction, because our mothers are custodian of the social order, culture, good upbringing, nutrition, environment, water. Those are the people who actually feel more the pressure, and the people who actually been custodians of this, by protecting them, but also speaking to their children about how to protect, how to value, because they know the pain of fetching water, they know the pain of destroying the environment and all this. They know the pain of having a sick kid. So definitely, they have a better opinion about that. Yes, men pay the bills, but they pay the bills because they have more access to resources, to assets. If it was fair, then everybody would be paying the bills. And this should be an ideal world. So the conversation around investment, trade, critical minerals, climate, they're all going in a direction whereby it will be really, really competitive. And despite talking about ESG, environment, social, and governance issues, you still see them as an appendix. The real conversation is about who fetches the value, who actually gets the most. And we need really to make sure that the voices of the women are in the room, not from behind the room, but also sitting in the front row. So we have a role as Necessary Access and other women organizations to rethink how we engage. We need to work with the women, give them the necessary support, coach them, mentor them, give them the confidence, give them the right information, connect them to the right spaces, and make sure that they're in the room on the front row, be able to ask questions, offer solutions, offer the experience, and become part of the future, rather than actually become the so-called beneficiaries, the target. You see all of this in our proposals, beneficiaries. So somebody else is doing it for you. It's totally different. We need to do it for ourselves. This is really important. And that's, I think, the space that we need to. But also they have voices, small voices in many conversations in many countries across the region. And I think we can be a space where these voices can be raised, these spaces can be given the right forum, or can be led into the right forum. So give them the voice, because normal media cannot touch them, because now everybody is going corporate. Traditional activism doesn't work because of the nature of even violence, increased violence. That's we're going to see more and more. And we're seeing in some parts of the world because of our resources. And it's really important to give them the voices so they can also speak about this, because otherwise nobody will think it's newsworth to give a voice to the so-called human interest stories anymore, social stories. And I think it's just important just to give that space. We might struggle, but any life that you touch, any person that you touch is really important in this world, because you never know the impact that you leave in somebody's life. And that's has always been my journey about building the legacy beyond me. One moment you'll exit the stage, and the only reason you're on that stage is because it's your turn. So play your role, let you be proud when you exit that I did my part.
We're all here for a purpose, and hearing that from Amani is a plus. So the intersection between women and issues, and not just being beneficiaries, and focusing on being on the top of decision making is actually a good thing.
That was a very beautiful account of how that transformation would look like. And we're very aligned in terms of thinking about transformational impact as opposed to like just more semantics and more artificial, because having an actual seat at the table doesn't mean you're placed there to save face and to appear as if you are participating and you have actual power when you don't, but actual participation where you also have the power and your inputs and your decisions actually making it into a rollout of transformation and change. So it's really important having that a vision of how that would look like and how that would affect the world and how that would be a transformation that we would want to seek. In essence, because currently, with the current challenges that we're facing, we're only seeing high potential of a rollback in terms of increased gender inequalities, violence, because resources are getting more and more scarce. And we're also dealing with climate change in stresses and shocks that directly affect women and marginalized communities, women and children. So the most vulnerable are the ones who would suffer the most from the fallback and implications if we do not ensure there's a seat at the table where we could impact actual change and transformation that would benefit them. So it's really amazing to hear your expertise and your experience in all this. You mentioned something about women also being empowered to have a voice so they could speak on these issues, that they could also be a player in advocating for their own change. So we're not just waiting for a handout, or we're not just waiting for somebody to place us as beneficiaries, but we actually want to participate and be the center of the change so the change can actually matter to us. What would be your advice for women-led organizations, women businesses, or even just individual activists on how to get started?
One of the lessons that you're getting from the way the market organizes itself is the ability to network and work together, complementing each other. It addresses a few things. One of them is the information that I have, somebody else might be having another information. So we're kind of bridging information. So we hear all this about dinners and coffee and all this kind of thing, and people just take it out. No, it's a waste. It's a space where people just want to show off and all that. But I learned much later that there's a lot of opportunity through that kind of networking and real networking, not only just the way we used to do it in civil society, where it's about positions. I have to be the chairperson, so and so. But just networking without structure, without even agenda, no agenda meetings sometimes really help because you learn a lot. Everyone comes with a bank of information and bank of knowledge, and you really need to do that. No single person can know it all, because even the nature of our own education system makes us being specialists. And that you turn the risk of knowing so much about what you know, but knowing nothing about what other people are doing. We need to also network, women organizations or practitioners in that space. We just need to share information. But also, there are also issues that are culture specific. This requires actually having boots on the ground. At times, there's a global solution. Everybody think of a very good concept and it's tested in very good urban settings. And then you go to the village hoping that it's going to work, or one village it works, the other one it doesn't work, because we don't really involve the local, knowledge. And we really need to invoke that. And this is actually the power of the woman, because that social fabric is held together by the woman. Understanding the history, the science, the culture, it's really important as custodians. And this makes it very rich kind of networking and very helpful in order to address some of those challenges, because some challenges are not addressed, not because they're not noticed, but because they are misdiagnosed. And we come with policy solutions that are not really related to that. And this is actually the challenge that we're going to face. But we also have these challenges of resources that are kind of diminishing at the moment. Development aid is no more with us. And charity also is going to be less and less as people struggle to really make business work. So traditional kind of funding is going to disappear. And we need to come with innovative financing approach. Sometimes we think about how we do our wedding, birthdays, especially in my country, Tanzania. People love birthdays, people love weddings, and we mobilize a lot of resources. But when it comes to developmental agenda, we say, we have to wait for donors. It doesn't work like that. Why can't we use the same model that we use in our churches, in our mosque, in our social functions, whether it's marriage, whether it's birthdays, whether it's graduation, the same kind of model and that approach and philosophy to really mobilize resources. One of the biggest mistakes I made in my career was thinking that donor funding will be there for, and I left aside some of the innovative ideas that I started with during the beginning of HakiMadini. where we were able to involve communities. I remember that our first office was created through contribution from the community in Mererani. The first office was contributed to by someone who had intended to have a shop for the wife, and then sort of, it's a good agenda. Use this. My wife is not reading it now, maybe later. You can use it for a year or two, and then you decide. And then I remember my brother-in-law decided from his bar, he had some bench, wooden bench and some tables, and he contributed to us. And then we had another friend who had a lumbering yard, contributed some wood and logs, and we decided to build that office, finishing the door, the windows, and all that. They used to call me Wakili, you're doing very good work. And then they just contribute some money, some contribute in kind. And then when the funding started coming 3 years later, I worked 3 years without having funding from any institution. And after that, this funding came. And the funding came with feeling or with even instruction that let's just focus now to do this work well. Now you have assured funding. Don't run around looking for money and all that. And that meant that big resource is community's contribution. It's left aside, be seen small, be seen irrelevant. It had its own issues. You have to spend hours chasing after some of these things, but it's also important. It also builds relationship. Now relationship shifted to donors, and all I was accountable to was donors. And I traveled that journey almost for 20 years. And every time I look at that, I say, okay, now that the donors are exiting, now regret even missing that 20% or 10%, which also created that strong bond and ownership within communities that we work with. We used to travel sometimes to places outside Arusha, maybe to the Lake region, and the communities there decide to house us. There was no guest house during the late 90s and early 2000s. So hotel. They cook for us. Nice chicken, have a nice warm bed heading from a Maasai community. We used to sleep even in the manyatta. It's interesting for someone like me who's curious about culture and all that. It was quite interesting. So it's not the hotels. We used to stay there. And as an activist, I had my tough times when we wanted to disappear because either we felt our lives were at risk or all that. The communities protected us. They would tell you when they're coming, and in this deep community, and nobody can travel or come in that place without them knowing. So we lost all that because we were chasing donor funding. And now that it's going, now that it's diminishing, I'm just wondering what the lessons would be if we had continued building that kind of home-based and local support kind of philanthropy approach.
You just broke down philanthropy at a community level, and it's something that people think philanthropy should come from, let's say, Ford Foundation or Mascot Foundation, one of those big foundations, but it actually starts with us.
Yeah, not losing that community touch, that community integration, and having the communities at the forefront. Because once they're engaged, even though they do not have a huge access to funding or huge amounts they'll be contributing, 10% or 20%, the amount that you were talking about is sufficient to ensure that you have stronger ties and actually a more impactful and transformational work, because they'll be part and parcel of the work throughout.
In my early years, we used to be supported by Oxfam. Oxfam used to have a very good model, and coming to think about it much later, realized it's something that is doable. Oxfam used to have a team of volunteers who used to run shops, and they used to collect artifacts and work, products from different communities where they work in. It could be coffee, it could be just dresses, it could be shawl made by women using traditional hand woven. And they used to sell it, I think, over Christmas or something like that. So as part of that, they generate extra for philanthropic work that they invest back in Oxfam's work across. So you see, some of these were collected from Tanzania. I was part of people mobilizing women groups to do that, knowing that it will still come back to them to support, but also they get a fair price for it and reduce the middlemen and women. So you see, that kind of model can really work. And we also have a diaspora outside Africa, US, EU, And a lot of them would, if they get accountable programs or projects that they want to invest, I don't think all of them just love to come to Africa to wine and dine and show off their big cars and all that. Some would actually love to contribute to those kind of things, contribute to your old school, contribute to building a well in your village. The only fear is that maybe the money is going to be misused. And we have very good examples in Africa. We've seen Ethiopia building the dam, Renaissance Dam, with a contribution from their own diaspora. They never got money from anyone. And there's a lot of development in around Addis Ababa, housing and infrastructure that was built around that diaspora. They create a bond of some sort, and people invest back, and you make money, but contribute to your own development. Similarly, like Senegal are trying that. Burkina Faso is encouraging that. Ghana is encouraging that. And this could be opportunity for philanthropy, but as well as business development. So it could be really, really important also pushing for this kind of opportunity, because it's not only the institutional kind of funding that will help, but also opportunity for tapping on those kind of resources. People can contribute their 10 pounds, $20, 10 euros, and all these put together, it can create a big difference. So Harambe can also work in our own model. Maybe you can call it something different. But the spirit of Harambe, although in Kenya is also dying because of misconception and abuse in situations, but it's really changed people. It really built many schools, especially schools to girls here in Kenya during Moi's time, and also contributed towards a lot of projects, social level, and this could be used to really mobilize resources without depending on external support. Foreign direct investment can only top up, but we should have our own foundation, because that's the only way you can also retain ownership and control and voice in whatever project that we develop. So there are a lot of alternatives for financing. We need to dare. Some are slow, but I think we're just used to writing proposals and making all these big talks. Amani goes and talk about this and that, and then out of that you attract funding. But yeah, maybe we need to also talk to our community and say, that every chicken that you sell might end up building a school for us, and this is going to educate your child. The same way you're arguing proposal. Maybe we need to find a language and opportunity for that. But it is there, but also not really structured. When I see people drinking and enjoying themselves in clubs, sometimes I just think, if this money would go to a development project, what difference would it have made? But anyway, somebody needs to step in and encourage that.
Yeah, I love it. I love the conversation around, autonomy and being the directors of our own development, and also having voice and urgency. And I think these are all kind of lessons and advice that you're giving us that now we are going to take on board, and our listeners are also going to take on board, and we need to start acting on it and see when we review this session again to review where we're at. Let's see how far we've gotten from this conversation. And I'm really excited about that, because this is like a challenge for us out there. Is we know there's trillions and trillions in remittance that is going back to Africa. Could we see how that is also used into development programming, and or also seeing what channels we can create to mobilize funding from not only diaspora but African communities to do actual impactful programming without over-reliance on traditional donors and traditional funding, which is going away. I think this is a very good advice and very good challenge that you have put on the table for all of us, all the listeners who are individual activists in the businesses, social enterprises, and organizations working on women and women empowerment and gender equality. I think this is what we need to take on board and see where we're at when we do a Where Are We At episode in the future. Over to you, Iman.
Yeah, now my question would be, what would be the biggest lesson for the younger generation?
I think for me, the most important thing is do something out of your passion. Whatever doesn't touch your heart, leave it. Sometimes we chase money, we chase success, we chase validation, and we waste our lives playing into other people's hands. If you find the purpose, always your own purpose, it makes life easy, because you don't really have to. You don't regret, because it stays with you. A lot of times, for one reason or the other, we keep on chasing dreams, everything that works. And sometimes we hear somebody hears there's a lot of money now going to climate, you run to climate. Going to HIV, you go back to HIV. Malaria, you go back to malaria. It doesn't really work like that. You just need to find the niche and linked to your purpose, linked to close to your heart. And that makes your journey very easy. You don't get fatigued easily because it actually motivates you every time you pick. But the other bit is we also have a danger of specialization. But as you grow up and through the career ladder, sometimes you just need to understand that knowing what is happening next door, we don't have to be an specialist in what they do. So just having that level of curiosity, a search for knowledge, is really, really important. Because as you rise through the corporate ladder, or when it's a public or civil society space, we just realize there are a lot of conversations that are quite linked to your story. And you miss out because you're just boxed and siloed in what you know. For me, that curiosity has always pushed me. Can even go into people discussing engineering related to roads or something like that and sit there and try to understand that. Of course, I come from a public policy perspective. Just listening to that conversation. I spent time, for example, when I was studying in Norway on oil and gas policy and management. But I used to go to operation class just to listen to them, how they do the piping, how do they calculate the reservoir amount of oil that is going to come out, the risks involved in installations as in offshore operation. And it gives me some level of understanding about the complexity around the same issues that we're talking about, but everyone is looking at it from a different perspective. There's a danger as you go much higher in the career because you might not be an expert in anything, but I think at that level, you're playing a big role to connect different pieces and create leadership around that, thought leadership. So you're able to sit within, to lead a team of different people, and all of them having different expertise, but help the conversation to actually converge at some point. That ability to facilitate and bring together comes with wisdom, but also comes with curiosity, just to understand everybody's voice in all this. So consulting is much about giving advice. It's not about taking away the client's voice. The ability to understand, the ability to listen is really important, but it's also important to just be able to have your own experience that can shape that. So you're able to provide a perspective from that. And that's why knowledge is really important. But the other bit is integrity. A lot of us want quick money, especially your generation. People see somebody getting a big car, I want a big house. And people think that all these things happen overnight. I believe if you want to build wealth and if you want to build success, it has to be step by step. This slowly, easy. You don't have to, when you go up so fast, you'll also fall very fast. And this is because we miss out on key steps. And especially this is about character and integrity. Nobody will come to you now and then you do bad work and then they come back to you after 10 years. Most of the work that we get is by reference. Most of the work is about reputation that lives beyond the assignment that you did. And it's really important to leave that impact in people's life. Just be honest. It's good to make mistakes, but it should be from, build up upon honesty, and people will always come back to, people will always understand. But if you're dishonest, cutting corners, sometimes trying to make quick bucks, it definitely catch up with you. And it's not associate with the good people. Yeah, it's just like dancing, and then you have a dancing partner who is all over, stepping on your toes, stepping on everyone's toe. So you get the rhythm, chemistry, like you two have. Just to make it work, it's important. Sometimes you just listen to someone and you see that. So even when you're picking clients, it's also about the chemistry. The good thing is I've done also coaching, and coaching tells you is if there's no chemistry or you feel like you're off, something tells you something is off, just don't accept the assignment. Ready to say no. Done that a lot of times, even missing in big bucks, because if the end is bad, it doesn't matter how much money you make. You lose more from yourself, and there's a lot of regrets. And yeah, so those are a few advices I'll give. I don't know if it's helpful. But
Absolutely
keep on
helpful.
talking.
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice. That is definitely things that we are going to keep with us and have them at the back of our head when we're going through this journey. And we're also very lucky to have you on board as our advisor. Thank you so much for accepting that assignment.
Thank you, Amani. That was insightful, but a lived experience as well, where with us as an African-led firm, a women-led firm, there's so many issues that we need to be focusing on. not derailing from the overall mission. That is what I always say. But also, you've said you're choosing a right partner. You can't choose a partner who's all over the place. And then you can choose also a partner just because they have the good money. You can choose a person who has a bad reputation, who will also tarnish your image in the long run. So there's so many things that you've spoken of, or the advices that you've given, which really apply in daily life, but also apply in the working environment.
As a father, my first child is a boy. Now he's in college. Years back when he finished, grade 11 now, going to high school. He decided that he's not going to Form 5 and Form 6. I just enrolled him for Form 5 in Arusha, and he had gotten good grades. And then he just told me, I was told I was away. I told that your son does not go to school anymore. I went to him. I was very angry when I came back. I thought he was gone into drugs or peer influence and this kind of stuff. I was so angry with him and almost chased him away from home. And then the mother said, no, don't do that. Don't react like that. Listen to him and all that. And then, so for about 2-3 days, it really disturbed me. And then a friend of mine told me, you know what? You are the one who keeps on advising people. And here you have your son. You can't even sit with him and advise him. And it's quite interesting and revealing. And I went back to talk to my son, created a very safe environment. There was no fear. There was no shouting. There was no anger anymore. Just wanted to say, no, what do you want to do with your life? And the young man said, I don't know, but I think I want to do something around computers. So he said, you wanted me to pass Form 4 so that I get grades. I did that for you, but I don't feel it. The education system, I don't feel it. And we went through a journey. Let me cut the whole thing short. So I gave him all the support. I told him, you go around the world, find out what you want to do. He had a brother done computer science in Dar es Salaam, and had also some relatives from other side in Nairobi. Just go and spend time with them, and maybe through your friends you can talk to them. And I kept on calling, the cousins, the step brothers, and all that. Listen to him and just tell me what he wants, because this is my firstborn. I can't let him just be off. And I was being pushed by my own bias. Being a lawyer myself, I thought my son should be like that as a firstborn. The young man found his passion, and now he's doing his degree in film production in UK. So he was a creative. I was forcing him to fit, and he's really enjoying his life. And actually, he did his first video, a documentary, 2 weeks ago, and I really celebrated him seeing the name of my son, the one I had given up on because he doesn't want to go to school to be a lawyer, to be an engineer, to be something like that. So these are just interesting stuff that we pass through life. And this applies to everyone. It could be a client. When you listen to the client, you already have your bias. It could be a family member. It could be a partner. And you lose someone, not because you are evil, but because there's bias in you. And there's a way, your perspective that you see in life, a creative, music, drawing, art is not a career. The only career is this. And we just forget that this is a really important part of our life. And everybody has their own purpose. Everybody has their own connection. And this young man really enjoys. Actually, he did his certificate. He went to diploma in Nairobi, and then went to actually looked for the university himself. Said, I want to go to university now. I'm ready. But he took a path, a very creative path. It's more of a BTech, not the heavy theory kind of education. Sometimes I also question our education system. A lot of things that I learned in school, I'm not using them in life now. Even the mathematics that I learned, I'm not a pilot, so I will not be using those physics and geography and all this kind of stuff. The only thing maybe is accounting money. And even now there's M-Pesa and calculator, so we don't need also to really count money and logic. But yeah, so there's a lot of things in the education system, and you wonder if are they relevant at the moment? And do we not waste a lot of time building somebody? Can you imagine that young man who went through high school, secondary school, and even to high school, qualified for high school, but didn't feel. And he was so strong, ready to challenge me and say, no, you paid the school fees, but I don't want to go to school. Not that school. I want my other kind of school. And we had to research and work together and even found that passion. So this is a story that I live with as a father, but it is a lot of what we go through in this world too.
And it's a really good story for parents as well. Devila, if you have anything else to add, thank you, Amani. I really enjoyed spending time with you. You are an inspiration. Keep doing the things that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Amani. I'm going to utilize and push for is continuous education. And this is educating yourself, not only in your career and your professions, but things outside. Iman and I, our experience with starting a business, we didn't have business expertise and business background, but it really pushed us to learn a lot outside our space of, being human rights lawyers. We've had to learn about business structures, business operations, and things that we would maybe traditionally not have to learn. But it's also the challenge of pushing beyond that. And our major takeaway as women who want to be advocates, women in business, women organizations, is to look above and beyond the boxes that we've been placed in, not only for funding and resource mobilization, but also for networking and our strategies. We have to look and think outside the box, and we have to connect and network with each other in order to succeed.
And we want you to do right now, we want you to tag young girls who you think will benefit from our stories. If they're stay-at-home moms, if they're immigrants like us, if they're people who are trying to juggle through their careers, if they just tag them. Let them see this information. Don't just sit with the information by yourself and be selfish. Don't be selfish. Tag them on Instagram. Tell us your story on the comment sections. Yeah. If you want to be part of our guests, we want to hear from you. If you're an immigrant who's living in anywhere in the world, anywhere, as long as you moved from one country to somewhere else, tell us, how did you navigate? How did you make it? We know there's so many people of African ethnicity who have made it in different parts of the world. We want to see you. We want to hear from you. So check us out, okay? Yeah. And give us a thumbs up and likes and review. I don't know, whatever.
Subscribe, thumbs up, follow us on our socials. Yeah. We need all those things. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us.
Until next time.